heavy iron doors of the dungeon creaked open, the sound echoing off the cold, damp stone walls. Robert Baratheon, his warhammer slung over his shoulder, entered with an imposing presence, followed closely by Ned Stark, his expression as cold and steady as the northern winds. Gold cloaks flanked the room, their torches casting flickering light across the dim chamber. At the center of the room sat Lord Tywin Lannister, chained to a sturdy wooden chair, his golden hair dulled by the shadows. Even in chains, Tywin exuded an air of unyielding authority. His back was straight, his expression composed, and his piercing green eyes carried the same cold intensity that had commanded armies and cowed lords. He watched as the king and his hand approached, offering no reaction to the chains that bound him or the dire circumstances he faced. Robert stopped a few paces from Tywin, his gaze hard and unrelenting. The silence was thick, charged with years of animosity and unresolved tension. Finally, Robert spoke, his voice blunt and venomous. "What do you have to say?" Robert growled. "For your daughter's foul crimes and your betrayal of the realm, Lord Tywin." Tywin's face remained impassive, his voice steady as he replied, "I see no crime in protecting the legacy of my house, your grace. If that is betrayal in your eyes, then I am guilty as charged." Ned's voice was cold, cutting through the chamber like a blade. "Do not feign ignorance, Tywin. You knew of Cersei's incest, of her children's illegitimacy. You schemed to keep your false king on the Iron Throne, knowing the chaos it would bring to the realm." Tywin's gaze shifted to Ned, his tone laced with contempt. "Lord Stark, you speak as though you have never schemed to protect your family. Tell me, would you not do the same if it were your children's lives in question?" Robert's temper flared, his voice booming as he slammed the butt of his warhammer against the stone floor. "Enough of your riddles, Tywin. Your daughter's lies and treachery have torn this realm apart. You've raised banners in defiance of the crown, plotted against the stability of the realm, and now you sit here pretending to be a victim." Tywin's lips curled into a faint smirk, his first real reaction to the confrontation. "Raised banners, your grace? My banners remain loyal to House Lannister and the realm. If others rise in my name, that is no fault of mine. As for my daughter's choices, I did not dictate her every action. A father's reach has its limits." Ned's jaw tightened, his tone sharp. "And yet your limits extend far enough to plot with Walder Frey to undermine your enemies. Far enough to bribe and blackmail half the lords in the West. Do not play coy, Tywin." Tywin's eyes narrowed slightly. "I have always done what is necessary to preserve my house, Stark. The Baratheon rebellion, your rebellion, taught me that only the strong survive. Do you think I would sit idle while my enemies conspired to unseat my family?" Robert stepped closer, his face inches from Tywin's, his voice dropping to a low growl. "Your family sits in disgrace because of your scheming. You should have reined your daughter in before she brought ruin to the throne. Now it's too late." Tywin remained unfazed, his voice as cold as the steel chains around his wrists. "You accuse me of disgrace, Robert, but tell me, what of the throne you sit upon? Is it not stained with the blood of the innocent? Is it not built on rebellion and treachery?" The king's face darkened with rage, his grip tightening on his warhammer. "Watch your tongue, Lannister. You're a prisoner in my dungeons, not a lion in your den." Tywin leaned back in his chair, his expression one of calculated defiance. "I am a lion wherever I sit, your grace." The tension in the room was suffocating, the weight of their words threatening to erupt into violence. Ned stepped forward, his voice breaking the moment. "Your defiance will not save you, Tywin. The truth is clear, and justice will be served. The question is whether you face it with dignity or continue to drag your house down with you." For the first time, Tywin's composure faltered, a flicker of calculation crossing his face. "And what justice do you propose, Stark? Execution? Imprisonment? Do you think the realm will be better for it? The West will not kneel while its lord rots in your dungeons." Robert straightened, his eyes narrowing. "The West will kneel or it'll burn. Your time of scheming and treachery is over. But for now, you'll remain here, Tywin, until I decide what to do with you." As Robert turned to leave, Ned lingered for a moment, his eyes locking with Tywin's. "You may think yourself above justice, but every man faces it in the end." Without another word, the two men left the chamber, the heavy doors slamming shut behind them. Tywin sat alone in the flickering torchlight, the chains around his wrists a grim reminder that even lions could be caged. In the chambers of the Red Keep, Robert Baratheon and Ned Stark sat across from one another, the weight of their decisions pressing heavily upon them. The capture of Lord Tywin Lannister had created a dilemma neither man could easily solve. The implications of Tywin's imprisonment extended far beyond the dungeon walls. They reached into the heart of the Westerlands and threatened to reignite tensions in a realm still reeling from war and the recent battle with the White Walkers. Robert leaned back in his chair, his warhammer resting against the table, his face etched with frustration. "Damn that lion. Every time I think I've got him cornered, he reminds me why the realm fears him. He's dangerous, Ned, even in chains." Ned, ever the voice of reason, nodded solemnly. "Dangerous, yes, but his death would do more harm than good, Robert. The Westerlands are fiercely loyal to House Lannister. Executing Tywin could push them into rebellion." Robert slammed his fist on the table, his anger bubbling over. "Rebellion? They've already rebelled in everything but name. Ned, Tywin's schemes and his daughter's treachery nearly tore this kingdom apart. The man deserves the axe." Ned's gaze remained steady, though his tone was firm. "Deserving or not, we must consider the consequences. If we execute Tywin without giving his house the chance to stand down, we risk open war. After what we've just faced, the realm cannot afford another conflict." Robert grumbled, pouring himself a goblet of wine. "So what do we do? Let him rot in the dungeons while his family conspires to free him?" Ned leaned forward, his voice quiet but resolute. "We send a raven to Kevin Lannister, demanding that he stand down his forces and pledge loyalty to the Iron Throne. Make it clear that his brother's life depends on it." Robert raised an eyebrow, his interest piqued. "And if he refuses? Then we've given them the chance to avoid bloodshed," Ned replied. "But we make it clear that our patience is limited. Tywin may be in chains, but the mercy we extend is conditional. If Kevin defies us, we will have no choice but to execute Tywin as a traitor to the crown." Robert considered this for a moment, his face softening slightly. "You're always the reasonable one, Ned. Fine, we'll send your damn raven. But make sure it's clear we're not begging for their loyalty. If they want war, we'll give it to them." Ned nodded, his lips pressing into a thin line. "We'll also acknowledge their efforts in the fight against the White Walkers. Mercy, when offered, must be tempered with respect. If Kevin sees that we value his house's contribution, he may be more inclined to comply." Robert snorted into his goblet, a wry smile tugging at his lips. "Respect for a Lannister. That's rich, coming from you." Ned allowed himself a faint smile. "It's not respect for Tywin. It's respect for the men who fought alongside us in the north. The Lannister bannermen were crucial in holding the line. Kevin will remember that." Robert sighed, setting his goblet down with a thud. "Fine, draft the raven, Ned. But don't take too long with your words. I've little patience for diplomacy." The raven was sent later that day, its message carefully worded. "To Kevin Lannister, Regent of Casterly Rock, your brother, Lord Tywin Lannister, sits in the dungeons of the Red Keep, charged with treason and rebellion against the Iron Throne. His fate lies in your hands. The Crown acknowledges the contributions of the Westerlands in the recent battle against the White Walkers, and we extend our gratitude for the bravery of your men. However, this mercy will only extend so far. Stand down your forces and pledge fealty to the Iron Throne, or your brother's life will be forfeit. The peace of the realm depends on your loyalty. The choice is yours." Signed, Robert of the House Baratheon, first of his name, King of the Undulls, the Royner, and the First Men. Eddard Stark, Hand of the King. As the raven took flight, carrying its message westward, Robert and Ned knew the outcome was far from certain. Tywin's life was now a bargaining chip, But the Lion of Casterly Rock was not known for yielding quietly. The next move was Kevin's, and the fate of the Westerlands and the stability of the realm hung in the balance. The council chamber of the Red Keep was filled with tension as Robert Baratheon, Ned Stark, Stannis Baratheon, Renly Baratheon, and Ser Loras Tyrell gathered to discuss their next moves. The ravens sent to Kevin Lannister hung heavily over their heads, its outcome uncertain. Though the Lannisters were momentarily subdued with Tywin's imprisonment, everyone present understood the potential for chaos if Kevin refused to bend the knee. Robert leaned over the war table, his large hands gripping its edges as he scanned the map of Westeros laid out before them. His warhammer rested nearby, a reminder of the brute force he often preferred over diplomacy. "Let's not pretend, Ned." Robert began, his voice gruff. "If Kevin's a fool and raises his banners, we'll need to march. The Lannisters won't sit idle while we hold Tywin in chains." Ned nodded, his tone steady but concerned. "If Kevin defies us, the Westerlands will erupt into rebellion. The Crown has strength here in King's Landing, but an open war would stretch us thin, especially after the battle with the White Walkers." Stannis, standing rigid near the table, spoke next. "If Kevin resists, we must act swiftly. A prolonged conflict with the Westerlands will weaken the realm further. Every delay emboldens the enemies we haven't yet faced." Renly, seated at the far end of the table, leaned back casually, his expression thoughtful but unconcerned. "Let's not be so quick to call for war. Kevin Lannister isn't Tywin. He's a cautious man. There's every chance he'll stand down rather than risk his brother's life. But we should be prepared for the worst." Ser Loras Tyrell, representing the Reach, leaned forward, his youthful confidence evident in his voice. "The Reach stands ready, Your Grace. If the Lannisters march, our forces can bolster the Crown's armies. But I agree with Renly, for now we should tread carefully. The Westerlands aren't the only potential threat." Robert, growing impatient, slammed his fist on the table. "Careful? Treading carefully is what let the Lannisters grow bold in the first place. If Kevin moves against us, we crush him, quick and hard." Ned, ever the pragmatist, placed a calming hand on the table. "Robert, the city is already bursting with soldiers from every major house. For now, we hold our position. The combined forces of the North, the Reach, and the Stormlands, along with the Crown's forces, are enough to deter Kevin from acting rashly. But if we march on Casterly Rock too soon, we risk leaving King's Landing vulnerable." Stannis's voice, cold and resolute, cut through the room. "The Lannisters aren't fools. Kevin will see the strength gathered here and think twice before acting. But if he does move, we cannot hesitate. The Crown must not look weak." Renly smirked slightly. "Strength isn't always about charging headlong into battle, Stannis. Sometimes it's about showing your hand without playing it." Robert glared at his brothers, frustration evident. "Enough squabbling. You both sound like bloody courtiers. The truth is, we don't know what Kevin will do. But you're right, Ned, we keep all house forces here in King's Landing for now. Let Kevin see our strength and think twice before raising his banners." Ser Loras spoke again, his tone more cautious. "Your Grace, while it's wise to consolidate our forces, we should also prepare for the possibility of betrayal from within. If Kevin's spies know the state of Tywin's imprisonment, they may attempt a rescue." Ned nodded in agreement. "The dungeons must remain secure, and Tywin's movements must be kept secret. Any sign of weakness could embolden the Lannisters and their allies." Robert grunted, his frustration giving way to grudging acceptance. "Fine, we hold. But if Kevin even sniffs at rebellion, we march. The Crown will not tolerate defiance." The room fell silent for a moment as the weight of the decision settled over them. Finally, Renly broke the tension with a wry smile. "It seems the lions are caged for now. Let's hope they don't grow bold enough to break free." Robert raised his goblet, his expression grim. "To keeping the realm together, for as long as we bloody can." The lords echoed his toast, though none of them truly believed the peace would last. For now, the armies of the North, the Reach, the Stormlands, and the Crown remained in King's Landing, a formidable display of unity and strength. But as they all knew, war was never far from the horizon in Westeros.